And anytime that sounds good.
We'll say that.
The field is big, except back here.
Do you like what you do? Yes.
Did you get that fence price from Bob?
The what?
The fence?
That's what it was back here.
I got it from, internet. Ah. Check one. Check one. Good. All right. Well, I won't have to worry about feedback there.
Surround.
All right, it is 7:30. We're going to open the public hearing. Bob, you want to go through introductions?
Sure. Present this evening is Martin Duffy, who's the project manager. Also, Mike Kleinpeter, who is the CDBG administrator. Also, we have Jeremy Fisher, who's present. And also, we have Neil Beaver, Robert M. Ferguson Jr., all three physically present. Also, we have Tony Janeway and Peggy Myers, and Christina Lynn is also here this evening. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 citizens. And now we can turn it over to Mike.
Sure. Good evening, public and council. Mike Kleinpeter, Kleinpeter Consulting Group. Our job on this project is the grant administrator. Notice for today's public hearing was posted in the Plain Dealer on March 12th. This is our second required public hearing for the CDBG grant. CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant. That's offered to the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. We are applying for this grant under the Stellar designation. So Oak Groves have competitive grants every round, but since we do have the Stellar designation, we can submit an application whenever we're ready. The purpose of the hearing tonight is to discuss the application for grant funding. We're applying for park improvement projects through the Stellar designation. The grant amount will be $377,700 with local match funds of $477,944. That's $477,944 in private donations. The council will look to pass a resolution at their April meeting. With that, we'll wrap up signing some of the paperwork at the April meeting and then submit later in the month of April. We did receive our State Historic Preservation Office environmental response stating they were okay with the project with no issues. We're issuing a response to that saying we agree that there's no issue. So that starts the final clock before we can submit. With that, I'll turn it over to Martin or Bob to talk about the project. Whoever would like to talk about what's in phase 1.
Martin, would you like to?
Go ahead.
In phase 1, could I see your list here for just a second? I'll give it back to you. In phase 1, we have 4 different things or 5 different things that's going to be done. One will be the demo work. We'll start out with that. Then concrete work for the sidewalks, pavilions, asphalt, the buildings, and then also the fence. That'll all take place in phase 1, and we'll be taking bids coming up soon for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Martin, and he can kind of tell you anything that he wants to about that part of the phase.
So kind of the process of will happen as we put together bid documents for the project. So basically it's going to be able to be, basically anyone can turn in a bid if they would like. So open to pretty much anyone. So in those bid documents is going to be lay out everything that's in the project, when those bids are due. And then it's also going to cover all of the items that need to be in the bid to fulfill the grant. The grant has specific items in it that would be above and beyond most of your traditional bidding. And then once that's sent out, then there'll be a pre-bid meeting. So a meeting similar to this where contractors, if they'd like to bid on the project, can come in. We'll go through the bid documents, try to explain the project as best as possible, try to explain the process, paperwork that will be involved, that they will be required to do to be able to complete the project. At that point, bids will be received by the city or the town. And then selection of a contractor at that point. Once the contractor is selected, it could be multiple. I'm thinking we're gonna try to bid probably separate categories rather than lump sum bid for
Yep.
a general.
Yep.
We can do that a couple different ways. We could either do categories, which is probably what we're going to do, but we could also put at the end that someone could come in as a general and give a full price, so you can compare those. Once that person is selected, then we'll do pre-construction meetings with all of the selected contractors, make sure they understand everything, if they have any questions, that type of thing. Then, once that's done, hopefully we'll move into construction. During construction, I'll be involved at that time, site visits, collecting pay applications, that type of thing, making sure they're meeting the requirements. And then those will get forwarded to the town or the grant administrator to make sure that they're getting paid. And then once the project's done, then we'll kind of have a project closeout and grant closeout at that point. So it's kind of the construction side of things.
Timely, if I'm the public, right now we submitted that final response to SHIP to respond. Dan, they've already said they're okay with the project. It's about 15 days. So I've just got, if we submit an application at the end of April, we'd like to submit it mid-April, but if it gets to the end of April, we submit an application. Okra will award us the grant officially in May. And this is a federal grant, so there's a contract between the state of Indiana and the town that gets sent that has to be signed, and then it's got to go to 7 different state agencies for signature. It takes 45 days. So if we're awarded in May, that means we can be out to bid as early as July. If things go faster, we'll move faster. It's not us slowing it down. We want to go as fast as we can. But just for a realistic timeline, I'd say early July, out to bid, open bids late July, and then sign contract start as soon as the contractor can. Just to give you some idea what we're looking at timeline. We'll certainly, as soon as we get those contracts, the town will sign them right away. It just wants other state agencies to sign them. Sometimes they sign quickly, sometimes they take a full time. So that's kind of a timeline of this. Pavilions, how many pavilions are gonna be on this? A total of 3? Yeah, I just want to make sure I have that correct.
There's 3, 2 of them are combined.
2 of them are combined with the bathroom.
There's actually 2 structures, but 3 pavilions, each factory building.
And by the way, Martin, who is our project manager, is also the one that designed the buildings. So, and then got them approved by the state, so.
So with that, I think we open it for any public comment. Okra does look at public comment, make sure that, see if the public's in favor of this or not in favor of this. Do you support it? What kind of questions do you have? This is kind of your turn to ask any questions. If you would just state your name for the record so we can block it, that'd be great.
I've got a question. So Christina Lynn, we have the Okra grant amount of 377,000 and then the local match. Is that local amount required as part of the process and part of the grant?
So, in normal Okra Stellar grant rounds, you do have a matching requirement, but because you're under the Stellar designation, you do not have any matching requirement. It comes down to, what all do you want to do as phase 1? How much does that cost? And then based on that, how much local funds do we want to put in the project?
Okay. And so, for example, if we wanted to do less than phase 1 and could do that with just the grant money, would that be something that would be possible?
I think it'll come back to Martin putting the cost estimate of what we could get for that, and then we need to get that approved through Okra to get that. We have to make sure they're okay just funding that small piece.
Okay.
Because right now, what was done is during the Stellar process, there was a strategic investment plan put together of projects and funding and who had local match ready for projects. And I think that's how Alex helped. And if anybody was on that committee, please correct me. But I think there was a committee that put together, and based on your projects and how ready they were to go, they kind of ranked them, and then that's how they decided who got how much money across the county.
Okay.
It was whoever was shovel ready.
And so with making that local match or that local contribution of the 477,000, that makes the entire phase one project and all of those monies subject to the OPR requirements.
Correct. Correct, and the OPA requirements, just for everybody that's here, you have Build American, Buy America, which is also known as BABA, and you have Davis-Bacon wage components. The other thing it does is, with OPR grants, typically there's not any in-kind donation or people on site working other than a construction crew. So if you were to if you wanted to purchase a playground, the community just couldn't come and put it together. That's, it's kind of one of the requirements of the CDBG.
Are there any other restrictions or requirements for the CDBG?
Yeah, there's a lot. I can go into some of them. The first being, whenever we bid the project out, the contractor has to be registered in SAM, so it's free registration. You just go to sam.gov and you fill out your registration. You do not have to be registered to bid, but in order for us to execute a contract with you, we have to make sure you're not debarred from receiving federal funds, which means you went through that SAM registration. It's a little difficult at times. There's a help desk, keep calling, they'll get you through it. It's free to do though. That's one of the requirements. Another requirement is you gotta put up a bid bond, a performance bond, and a payment bond if you're a contractor to protect the town. So all bonds are required on this project. You are required to pay Davis-Bacon wages, and what that means is there'll be a wage scale that'll be issued for this project. It'll say, if you're a laborer on this site, you gotta make this amount of money. The contractor will be required to submit weekly payrolls to our office to verify, where we verify their fringe benefits, and we verify the amount those workers are being paid to make sure it's meeting that federal scale. Pay applications, I think we're probably flexible. Are you looking for an AIA, or what are you looking for? Are you flexible on that? OPR doesn't have a requirement.
I'm flexible, but I like a G703 AIA is what I prefer, but just easy for everyone to look at. Anybody, community-wise, town-wise, it's very simple, well laid out. So, and it's simple for contractors as well.
Retainage on these projects, we are required to hold retainage. It's either 5% throughout the whole thing or 10% through 50%. One of the questions I get is what happens if we come in under budget? Then we can, since we've cleared the whole site, we can go to OPR and just ask to do more work, and then up to the attorney on how much that costs and whether we can change order it in or not. There's some state laws about you can't change over 20%, I've heard, but I'm not an attorney, so I'll defer to her. But yeah, there's a bunch of just nuances to the OPR grant that it can be cumbersome, honestly.
And if we come under budget, if we do come under budget, then Okra still will pay the 377 because that's what was bid.
So we'll talk on a normal project, what they do is they say, if you're putting in, just to keep the math simple, 350,000 and we're putting in 350,000, if you come in $100,000 light, they split the savings. But because this is stellar,
Right.
typically you can go to them and say, hey, we came in under, we want to adjust our match percentage. And because I got that stellar designation, I kind of call it the golden ticket at OPR. You get a lot of rules that if they can be flexible, they will, but some of the rules they can't be flexible because it's just a requirement on their agency.
So actually we would save 100,000 instead of the 50.
We do a phase one modification through
Yeah.
OPR and ask.
So, and this may be more to Martin, what is the criteria for awarding the contract to the bids, right? So is it the lowest, most responsible bidder?
I mean, I don't know what OPR says.
So OPR stance on it is lowest, most responsible unless the attorney or architect/engineer makes a recommendation to not use them and justifies it online. Typically on projects like this, are you thinking about divisions? So that way you might have more than one prime? So that way you can- or are you thinking
Yeah,
one general
so
for the whole thing?
I'm thinking we would probably want to lump it into, kind of what Bob that's laid out here. I mean,
Mhm.
site work, just more of a contractor base, like, so if I think an excavator can take care of all of the site work, then that's gonna be a category, and then all the concrete work would be a category, asphalt would be a separate category. Buildings would be lumped together, it's not gonna be separated from, that would be more of a general on the buildings, and a separate plumbing, electrical, that kind of stuff. And then the other one's fence, so we could separate that. It's just, yeah, I think you're gonna get the best prices that way. And then we can, a lot of times they'll separate it out into those categories, and then you can also have a provision for a general contractor to do the whole project, so.
Kind of see.
You just have to
pick and
look at it
choose.
and see, hey, can we do better on the categories, or can this general contractor take care of it better? So,
And the concrete work would include, the flooring or the pad or whatever for the building.
right, so you'd have your building, foundation, slabs, curbing, sidewalk would all be on the concrete.
And also the light pedestals will be in there.
And so then the buildings would be the actual pavilions themselves and restroom.
Right, so there's a CMU or block restroom building, so I would lump that in with the building contractor. Just because it would be way too messy to have separate contractors on that. And you wanna look at that, so, demo and site work, that can be done with just me kind of scheduling it. So you gotta look at that to where you don't wanna separate things that is gonna add delay to the project, like this contractor, well, I can't start because these people aren't done. So you do wanna take that into consideration and make sure that, and during that pre-construction meeting, you hope to hash out a lot of that stuff. The contractors get to meet each other, you get to go over the schedule, you get to, if they foresee any problems, then you can hopefully get those things ironed out before the project starts. So,
And if you know a contractor interested, have them come to the pre-bid in case there is a general there looking for electrical or concrete work. That's the opportunity for them to get their name on a list so that everybody knows they're interested in the project.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get generals that can get the bond, but they can do these all the time, they can get the bonds, but then they want local
Right. So
construction.
a lot of your local contractors aren't going to probably want to go through some of the stuff that's involved in this. So that does happen. That's a good point. So you're gonna have you may have general contractors that bid on this project, and who knows where. And what they're gonna do is look for people to fill in these categories, and they'll take care of all the performance bonds and all the paperwork and make sure that all that stuff's being turned in so everyone gets paid. So it alleviates the local contractors. But obviously the general's making money off of them, so that's kind of the incentive to do that. So yeah, I mean, definitely tell everyone you know.
Yeah, more people bid, but that.
Yeah, and that definitely helps us get better pricing. Maybe not better pricing, but let's say accurate, good pricing.
Sure, competitive.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm just concerned with the $477,000 local match and not being left with any money to maintain it. Of that $477,000, I'd like us to set aside $50,000 off the bat just for future maintenance of this project, for as expensive as it's going to be. And we see that with Town Hall. I mean, that was given to us for free, and we've got maintenance that needs to do on it that we can't afford right now. And I'm really concerned about the $325,000 in buildings all going in phase one. I don't think that is I don't see how our town is going to be able to maintain those in the long run. And then with that, with not having any money set aside for playground equipment, from what I understand, with patronicity, no more than $10,000 from one donor. And so of the $400,000 donation, I'd like to see $10,000 of that set aside just to go towards that grant when that comes up. So that would immediately take off 60,000 out of that $477,000 that has been raised so far. And then, what are you thinking about that, Bob?
The 10,000, we can't do that on the patronicity
And why is that?
because the town cannot, it has to be donations from the public. The town cannot add donations to that.
But is that money in the town's account as of right now?
What?
I mean, the money that is with the community foundation, like, is that considered
Yes,
the town's money?
yes.
Okay.
Well, it's considered park money, is what it's considered. And to get money out of there, it takes the clerk treasurer, whoever the clerk treasurer is at the time, and whoever the council president.
So none of that money that's been raised so far can go towards the patronicity grant.
No, that'll be a completely different thing, and it will. And I know that we, as a board committee or a park committee, we've talked about doing a fundraiser for that specifically, and so.
So, I mean, with my concerns about the $325,000 in buildings and then the concrete that would be under those buildings as well, I mean, I just don't see how. So if we did the site work and demo, which is listed right now at $175,680, the asphalt $97,920, the fence $21,868, site lighting, which I don't know what all that includes, but that's at $86,400. That's at $381,868. So it has to get done at that time.
I'm not saying that at all. I thought you were reading off of.
No, I'm making a suggestion of outside of what has been, because for what the buildings are, I just don't see how it's fiscally responsible for the town to get $325,000 worth of buildings.
So you're proposing eliminating the building or two, or what are you thinking?
I
think the easiest thing would be to build the combined pavilion and not do anything on the single pavilion. Would be the easiest way to.
Do you know how much that is?
I don't off the top of my head, but let's just say the restroom, the double pavilion with the restroom is definitely the most expensive one.
But do we need a double pavilion? Like, what would a single pavilion?
I would not recommend well, you can either do the single or the double. The double is going to have the restrooms in it.
But we couldn't do a single pavilion with a restroom?
I would not recommend splitting that building. I think that would end up costing you more to split that building.
How would it cost us more than $325,000?
It wouldn't. I'm saying, I think that if you, so a single pavilion is just a pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
The double pavilions, 2 pavilions with a restroom building in the middle.
Yeah.
My recommendation is if you want to get rid of something, is just get rid of one, like the single pavilion, or I would not recommend splitting the double pavilion right now. Just because,
But why is that?
just for construction reasons. I think it's going to cost you a lot more to add on to it later.
To add on to what?
Add on to it later. Now, if you.
Well, I'm saying if we're not interested in adding on to it.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely save you money.
And how much would that cost then? I mean, that's what I would be interested in too, is just seeing what a single pavilion, because this $325,000, I mean, it's a lot for a town our size. And that's my concern.
Yeah. So to do that, I mean, we can give a cost estimate of what that would be. To do that, we would have to resubmit this to the state. But, there's no reason why we can't either. So I think that, I think the easiest route to save money on buildings is to get rid of the single pavilion. That's not gonna harm you in the future at all as far as construction costs.
And it's not going to require us to go back through the process of,
We do not have to redesign.
we don't have to redesign, nor do we have to go back to the state.
So,
But we don't have any numbers on that right now.
No, because we've never put that out like that. They've always given us numbers for the whole project, for all three pavilions.
Mhm.
Is there much economies to scale? I mean, I assume there's some because you're building three.
yeah,
Sure, it's cheaper.
there's some, but
Yeah.
it's. Yeah.
And when you
So
take
I wouldn't think of it as like,
Sure.
when you take the long building, when you take the long building, the majority of the cost is in the bathroom.
for sure.
That's where the majority of that cost comes. I've seen, when I was looking for bathrooms, just bathrooms, I've seen bathrooms run $325,000.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that we could probably give you a close estimate, order of magnitude estimate of what that cost is. I mean, you have this spreadsheet, you kind of see what the numbers are and how I inflated them based on the labor rates and the BABA stuff, so. So that's just kind of my 2 cents of view on the building part of it.
Mhm.
The easiest is just to get rid of one single pavilion completely. If you really want to save a lot of money and you still want a bathroom, then yeah, we can look at bathroom in one pavilion. But that's going to require a lot more work to do that at this point.
Yeah.
In the game.
And I think if we change the scope and we go down, we probably still just need to, for the publicity, have another public hearing. OPA requires a minimum of 2, there's nothing that stops you from 3. But if we end up changing what we got for the project, then I'll need to check with OPA. I'm thinking we might need to do another public hearing, so that way if everything matches, what we're doing. Sometimes when you go down, they're okay with it because you advertise the higher number. Since this is all private donation funds, it may not matter to them. But I just wanted to check, so.
Is the town's match actually that amount, or is it just that you have to match over?
Well, I have to put in my newspaper ad what the Okra grant amount is and what the matching funds are. And so in this case, I put donation fund, that amount. So if we go down, I think we're gonna be okay, but I don't wanna speak and then Okra say, hey, you have to do another one and we're surprised.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, we just put that in the paper, wait 10 days and then do another public hearing.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna be on board for the full $477,000 to go right into phase 1 and not have anything set aside for just a little cushion for when things do come up. And then also, I don't know, I just still don't like not having anything planned for playground equipment. Yeah.
I feel like the committee has worked really hard, and the committee is going to do fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
So with everything that's been said, if we would eliminate one of the pavilions, I wouldn't try to scream about. But I feel like we're putting water on a fire. And the committee is excited and we're ready to do fundraisers. And I feel like that's gonna come. I think I have the support of the committee. So that's kind of where I'm at. We've been working on this a long time.
Well, there was also a lot of people that were really excited about the cabin over here. And the Lions Club has a lot of energy behind them. And then we couldn't find money to repair that little roof. And it took a lot of convincing for all of us to work together for that tiny little roof.
That is a complete different scenario because the park is for the whole.
And it's a much
outside.
bigger project, yes. We're talking about $1.1
But
million.
we've already got how much thousands of dollars that should cover.
For now, that's what I'm worried about is we have a lot of money right now But then where are my kids gonna be at when it's time? Where are their kids gonna be at? I'm just concerned about the long-term sustainability of this project for as much money as going into it and how little the town has when it comes to the budget for even maintaining town hall. I don't know where that money is gonna come from, even if we set up a depreciating account, which we absolutely should. But still, there's gonna be some big expenses along the way.
And that's been my idea. I talked to Neil earlier. I think, one, I know that they've been talking about a park board, which we don't have we do not have a park board at this time. That requires a ordinance and requires a vote and a lot of other things, but it does not require a town board to do a park depreciation fund. Currently, we have a water depreciation and a sewer depreciation. And we could put money into that park depreciation fund that would be specifically for those things that Neil's talking about further down the road, in 15, 20 years. If something needs to be repaired, that depreciation fund is there for that. And I've talked about that also.
Any other public comment? So, Randy Myers, don't know if I even want to get into this. So you're just kind of saying shut it down?
No, I'm saying reevaluate what goes into this phase one, what can we use the CDBG grant for? But $325,000 in buildings seems like too much to me. That's what I'm saying. And I would like to see what the money looks like if we take out the one building, what's the money look like what would it cost if we were to go down to one pavilion and one restroom? But 325,000 seems like too much.
Any other public comment?
Well, I would like to put my say into this too. I am Diana Ferguson. The community has, as David Peggy, has worked very, very hard. We're all very excited about this park going into our town for our future kids and their families. We're looking forward to it. It's going to make us very proud to live here in town of Roann. And I really believe the town, a lot of people are supporting this organic project. They're looking forward to it. They're excited about it. And I really believe the town's going to come together and see that all of this is going to be possible. Sometimes you gotta put faith and hope ahead of wants. Dollars. Takes the dollars, but I really believe that it's good for our county.
I'm not against a park in any way. I think updating what we have down there, I mean, that my kids have been playing on that equipment since they were born, and it's been falling apart since they were born. I absolutely believe in a park project down there, but I also am concerned though, if we get too ahead of ourselves, and so far, very little, if any, tax dollars have gone into it. The survey, I know the town paid for, but very little tax dollars have gone into it. We're still at a place, even at $877,000, no tax dollars are really going into it. But if anyone's been at the all-inclusive park in the city of Wabash, it's not even 10 years old. We go there and there's park equipment that's broken. The landscaping looks like trash. And that is a very small park. And I know a lot of money went into that. My concern is this is gonna come onto our taxpayers at some point. When it's getting built, everyone's gonna be excited about it, but how many years down the road until our taxpayers are dealing with this and they're not excited about this big park anymore? That's the only thing that I'm concerned about here, is that how are we going to maintain this in the long run? We've hit the jackpot with this huge donation, with this stellar grant, but I don't want to see us ruin that for future generations because we spent it all right away and have nothing left to maintain it.
Any other comments? If there are no other comments,
8:06, public hearing adjourned.